Hello friends, happy December. Welcome to the first Christmas cake of the year. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how I made Hermey from Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Today's video is also a collab with the lovely Robin over at the Robin's Nest. Please go and check out her video. She is so talented. I will have it linked down below, and don't forget to subscribe. To make Hermey's head, I have two 7-inch cakes that I've cut in half, and I'm filling those with some vanilla buttercream. And then, of course, I have my template, and I'm just kind of jimmying those together so I get the shape of his head and his hat in there. I'm going to take my knife and go around all the edges. I just want to round them out so they curve down towards the board. When I was happy with the shape, I did a thin layer of vanilla buttercream just to trap in all those crumbs, and then let that sit in my fridge for about 25 minutes. Then I did one more layer of my buttercream, and to get it extra smooth, I just used a piece of cardstock because it can fit to the shape of the cake. While my cake was still chilled, I marked in where the eyes, nose, and where his hairline is going to start. And instead of carving out where the eyes are, I just very gently pushed in. I wasn't worried about it being too deep. I just want to have an idea of where the shape is when I add the fondant. I took a little nubbin of fondant and created the nose, and then I covered the whole thing in this flesh tone and just worked quickly to smooth into the sockets of the eyes. If you find that you have a little bubble that gets trapped there, you can pop it with a pin and push the air out. And I also just very gently shaped around the nose. I'm using a light yellow for his hair, and ooh, let me tell you about this hair. It was definitely the trickiest part of the cake. Hermey doesn't like to make toys, and Hermey doesn't like to have his hair made from fondant. It definitely looks like awful until it doesn't, so stick with me here. I layered a couple pieces, popped an ear on, and then once I had that base layer down, I added the blue for his cap, and then went in with that one final real swoopy piece. It's worth it to really take your time here and blend all the pieces together. I probably spent an hour on his hair, I'm not kidding. When I was finally happy with his hair, I added one more piece of that skin tone for his ear on the other side and just put it right flat against the board. I added two ovals of white for his eyeballs. One is slightly smaller because he's kind of looking at an angle, right? So it's not dead on. So half of his face is kind of further back. And then I went around and defined more around the nose. With a dark red shade, I added the ribbon on his cap, and then with my fondant tool, just added a couple lines to give it a little more dimension. And then I cut out some black circles with some piping tips and added Hermey's pupils and then his eyebrows. His mouth has a very red Ronald McDonald vibe. So once I added this rounded out triangle, I just indented the center a little bit because I'm going to darken that up later. So now that his features are all done, he's looking a little flat, so he needs some depth, he needs some color. I'm going in with a fluffy brush and some brown color dust and going into all the areas where there be more of a shadow around his eyeballs to make them pop, as well as around his nose. I did originally use pink dust for the cheek, but I realized that I wasn't getting the depth that I wanted, so I mixed together some white food coloring with a little bit of Ivory food coloring gel, and I'm stippling that on the part of the face that's closest to me. I did remove his eyebrows for this part just so I didn't muck them up. And then once I had that base layer down, I went in with a slightly lighter shade of that ivory color and highlighted the very top of his forehead close to his widow's peak. To deepen the tone of his hair, I'm adding a little bit of Ivory food coloring with my food grade alcohol and brushing that over all of the yellow parts. I really relied on my reference photo for the highlights. I just used straight white and added that around the sockets, on the tip of his nose, his lips, and then a couple streaks through his hair as well. Once the face had dried down, I went back in with my pink and just blushed up his cheeks. I almost forgot to shade the cap. I actually used some black color dust for this and just went into all the nooks and crannies as well as underneath the cap. Very critical, that part. I covered the whole board in some light blue fondant and then just tried to make the seam directly underneath his head because I'll be able to cover that with his body. I rolled out a slightly tapered circle of that same blue I used for the cap, and then on top of that I'm going to layer basically a white blobby and then a piece for his neck and then another white blobby on top of that. And then I'm going in with my fondant tool and I'm going to swirl that white fondant because that's like his fluffy collar. I cut off that excess blue at the bottom and then just marked in that line down the center for his zipper. Using more of my black, I just shaded underneath his head and down the side of his body, and then I slapped on a couple snowflakes and he was done. He was definitely trickier than I thought he was going to be. His round head is deceptive, but I'm happy with how he turned out. Please don't forget to check out Robin's video as well. I'll have that linked down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.